Hello, and welcome to the A-List. I'm Luke Jebb, and with me today is Mark O'Neill. Thanks for being on the show, Mark.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, Mark, what exactly do you do?
Well, I'm the director of athletic training / head athletic trainer of the Chicago Cubs. So, pretty much have a hand in almost anything that has anything to do medically with any of the players, basically from our major league roster straight through to the minor league system.
Okay, so how did you become interested in this field of work?
A lot of athletic trainers will tell you the same thing. I love sports, kind of like a lot of people get into different areas of sports, and it's something that I knew I wanted to stay in. Unfortunately, I didn't have the talent to do it athletically, but I had an uncle that was a football coach at the University of Arkansas with Lou Holtz, actually, before he left there. And went up and met the athletic trainer at the University of Arkansas and worked some football camps and some things like that, and had an opportunity for some scholarships and were more for financial aid anyway in the beginning, and then it kind of worked its way towards the end towards a scholarship, so it helped me get through school. And then it was an opportunity to stay in athletics and have an impact on the games, hopefully, on the sidelines.
Okay, so where did it go from there? How did you go from possibly working at the University of Arkansas to being at the Cubs organization?
Initially I was in graduate school after I finished my undergraduate degree, and in the off season the players would stay. I shouldn't say the players. A lot of players that get drafted out of college, they're preparing for spring training. I'm talking about baseball players now, and I was with the basketball team at Arkansas, and a lot of the players go back to the university that they played at. And because there's usually a half dozen or to a dozen of those guys, especially at a major school, that are playing pro baseball, whether it's in the minor leagues or major leagues. And we had an indoor facility at the University of Arkansas, and I was working on a couple of the guys, and they were in the minor league system with the St. Louis Cardinals, and I knew them from a couple of classes I had. And one of the athletic trainer they had in A-ball that year, in their A-ball position in Savannah, Georgia, had quit, a week or two earlier due to some health issues with his wife. And they had an opening, and the athletic trainer, one of the athletic trainers I worked for at the University of Arkansas, had ties with the guy that ran the Cardinals organization at the time, and I came up with the Cardinals organization in St. Louis, and he called, and it was one of those scenarios, just called at the right time. I had the credentials that they needed.
Yeah.
And it just was one of those. I was at the right place at the right time, and at the time I was going to see how it worked. They were going to give me the opportunity at the university to leave for the summer, go work 1 year of baseball, and at the end of the baseball season, if it didn't work, I was going to go back to the university. And I got into it and really enjoyed it, and really I was impressed with the way the whole professional baseball scheme worked, other than some of the bus rides at that level. But and came back and knew I wanted to go, try it again, and it's just, here I am 24 years later, with the Cubs. But as an athletic trainer, it's no different than the coaches and the clubhouse guys and the people such that basically fill up the baseball operations team. You basically work your way up. You start in the minor leagues, and you just kind of work your way through the system. I was fortunate that the Cardinals director of player development was a guy named Ted Simmons, who played years in the big leagues, and I had a pretty good relationship with Ted, and it worked out well that I went to Double-A the next year, and I was in Double-A for 3 years on some really long rides in the Texas League, and ended up in Louisville, Kentucky, with their Triple-A team with the Cardinals, and spent 4 years in Triple-A, and then I had an opportunity to go to St. Louis as the assistant in St. Louis. In 1998 was my first year in the big leagues in St. Louis, and got to witness all of McGuire's home runs.
Oh, wow.
As he and Sammy were going at it that year.
Yeah, the big race.
The big race, and saw every one of McGuire's 70, which was kind of fun. And obviously Bonds has taken that title away. But spent 7 years with the Cardinals. Was fortunate enough to go to the World Series with the Cardinals in 2004. That was the first year when the Red Sox got rid of their curse, so hopefully I'm here when this one takes place. But after the 2004 season, there was an opening here in Chicago, and Jim Hendry's, the general manager with the Cubs, called and asked for a chance to interview me, and I came up and interviewed, and it was an excellent opportunity for me. I had a young family, I still have a young family, had a young family at the time. And all the day games in Chicago were very appealing to me because of being able to be home in the evenings for dinner with my family when we weren't on our road trips, and being able to go to my kids' baseball games, their basketball games, and things. So it's very important. That was very big to me. And staying in the central part of the country, I was important. We talked a little bit backstage about the travel, and the travel is an incredible. It's just a huge demand, and staying in the central part of the country was huge. And so that was another thing that attracted me to Chicago. And fortunately, I got the job, and here we are.
Wow. So you're saying, because you live in Chicago and because the Cubs have a lot of day games, it allows you to eat dinner with your family, basically?
Well, it really helps out in the season. I mean, obviously we go to spring training for about 7 weeks, but when you get back from spring training from Arizona, the season starts in April and May, and it goes through into September and hopefully on into October if you're in the playoffs. Well, obviously, that's 3 of the 6 months ties in with school, and if you have kids that are in school, you get up and you see them for a few minutes in the morning if you have a night game, and they go to school, and then by the time they get home from school, I'm at the ballpark, getting ready for the game that night. So it gives me an opportunity. The day games give you an opportunity where I'm home by 6:30, and having dinner. Of the 81 home dates that we have, 65 of them are day games with the Cubs. So it was very appealing to me for to have that type. And I'm a morning person. I get up early in the morning anyway, so it didn't bother me at all getting up for day games. A lot of players will complain about it, but not me.
So what are the demands of your job basically throughout the season and on the off season? Like, what does a regular day in the life of Mark O'Neill look like?
Off season, which we're in right now, I could kind of go into that real quick. We do a lot of interaction. I'm on a couple of committees with Major League Baseball where we spend a lot of time, we're going into a new electronic medical record system that all 30 teams that are on board with. So there's been a lot of technical things this winter compared to the previous winters, and a lot of webcasts where we've gone in and it's interactive computer orientation on this new system. But we contact all of our players. I take care of myself and Ed Halber's the assistant in Chicago, and then our strength and conditioning coach, we kind of work hand in hand with him. But we talk to every one of our players on the 40-man roster once a week. We don't get any surprises, and we stay on top of them. So I'll spend probably 2 or 3 hours a day on the phone in the winter. It's nice because I can do that from the house. Obviously if there's trades or free agent acquisitions, I get a list of free agents at the end of the year, and we do a lot of research on those guys. So hopefully you're bringing in guys that don't have medical issues. I was on the phone this morning for a couple hours this morning with another athletic trainer from another organization trying to work some, basically exchanging information for potential trades, things like that. So there's a lot of off-seasonal phone. It seems like 90% of your time is spent on the phone. But we do go out and try to see everybody before the first of the year. So we travel some in the winter. We'll go out and see guys and work with them, and they're working out. And we go out and make sure that we usually address things at the end of the season that they need to work on during the off season, and we're just seeing how that transition is taking place. And then we'll try to see them all again after the first of the year before spring training, when they've started their baseball functional activities. They're working out, just doing their normal workouts through January, through the end of December, and after the first of the year, they start doing transitioning into their baseball activities. So we want to see them as they're doing that. I spend a lot of time with pitchers. Our strength coach spends a lot of time with our position players because of the dynamics of the rotator cuff and scapula. But that's kind of how, there is some travel in the winter. During the season, it's a grind. I mean, it's a marathon I go to spring training February 15th, and it's 7 days a week, 10-hour, 12-hour days every day straight through the end of the season. Even on off days, which we only have 10 or so, you're still at the ballpark treating the guys that were injured or that you're trying to get back on the active list that might be on the disabled list. But it's, you get to the ballpark for a night game. We're there about 1 o'clock, and the game starts at 7, 3-hour game, hours worth of treatments afterwards, and then you get home. So it's a 10, 11-hour day at home, regardless if it's a day game or a night game. And then obviously the demands of the travel. Like I said, we play 162 games in 180 days, and 81 of those are on the road, so a lot of travel.
Yeah. So what do? You said after the game, maybe an hour of treatment on various players. What do you do? What does that involve?
Well, you do. We're very proactive in our approach for our pitchers, especially. I would tell you, 90% of my time is spent on pitchers. But we do. The starters we have a routine for the starters. You have 5 starters, and they have a routine every 5 days that they have to go through, and the relievers as well. And you typically use 3 or 4 relievers a night. And every one of them we have a maintenance program for each one of them after they're done, and then we have a very specific shoulder maintenance range of motion program that we put them through because you lose the range of motion through throwing. Everything tightens up. So it's a stretching program that takes 10-15 minutes for any guys that throw that night. Obviously, the starter comes out, and I'll go up into the athletic training room, but the last 3 or 4 innings of the game, or my assistant will go up there and we'll work on those guys, and they're done. And then as the relievers come out, we kind of hit each one of those guys as they come out of the game, because obviously when the game's over, people are ready to get out of there. They've been there long. It's been a long day.
Okay, so you work for about an hour after the game, and you usually come in a little bit early, so it's a pretty long day overall. Mm-hmm. What else do you do with your job other than like the things that we've talked about, like during the regular season? Are there things that you have to do that people outside just wouldn't have guessed that you actually do?
Well, there's a lot of I always kid around. I wish with all of us, we wish we had a crystal ball, because if a guy gets injured, we're trying to determine the minimum days that you can. If you put a guy on the disabled list, it's 15 days, and if it's a guy like Derek Lee, if it's an injury that's going to take 3 or 4 days, he's not going to be able to play for 3 or 4 days. You don't want to put him on the disabled list and possibly lose 10 days that he could have been playing, because you have to wait the entire 15 days. So there's a lot of interaction between ourselves, the orthopedic, our internist, the docs that take care of us. We spend a lot of time doing those things. A lot of times off the field, we'll do. We have a nutritionist, and she handles most of the day-to-day menu planning in the clubhouse for what the guys eat. And as I said, we're there 10 hours a day. These guys eat on average 2 to 3 days, 2 to 3 meals a day in the clubhouse. So I don't set the menus, but oversee a lot of that. So there's just a lot of interaction, with things things like that. And you're going to get the occasional call where you're going to have a player calling you on the way home that slipped down the stairs and turned his ankle, or like I said, we handle almost every medical aspect with the organization. Players have wives and kids, and they get their kid will come up with the sniffles and ask us to help facilitate an appointment with the pediatrician the next morning or whatever it might be. But you feel like you feel like you're a mom to 25 grown men.
So you get a lot. Would you say you get a lot of calls? I mean, after the game or out of game hours from other people trying to basically have you fix their problems?
Oh yeah, my wife. She's my mom too. But my wife, the invention of the cell phone basically was her demise with me, because you just could never get away between Blackberries and cell phones. So it's 24 hours a day, and any guy that works at our level will tell you that it's just nonstop. You very rarely. The one thing I do for myself, I'm an avid jogger, and that's the one thing that it's 45 minutes to an hour a day that everybody knows I do that, and obviously you're not carrying your phone with you, but that's really, so it's a 23-hour a day job for me.
Wow. So that's pretty much your only outlet where you're not interrupted?
No, during the season. But you know what? I don't want to come across, because it's a wonderful opportunity. The relationships that you've built through the years it's been fantastic. The coaches, I've been fortunate to work both in St. Louis and Chicago, which are 2 great baseball towns. To have spent time with Tony La Russa, to spend time with Dusty Baker, and now Lou Piniella. I've met some great people. The coaching staffs, I've got wonderful friends. Obviously, I've mentioned our assistant Ed Halber and the strength coach Tim Buss. They're like brothers, to me, and we spend as much time with them as we do our family. So I mean, the relationships are invaluable, and then the players. I mean, I stay very close with several players that we've had through the years. You try to separate the business from that, and you don't really. But as they go on and they retire, you've developed a bond with some of these guys, and I stay in touch with a lot of guys that have gone on and retired. And you get along with a lot of guys that are on the team. We have some, we love to have fun. Dempster's a huge prankster. Things like that. We have a lot of fun, believe me. There's a lot of fun. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah. All right, so what is your game plan going from here? Like, obviously, I don't think you're going to do this forever. So what do you plan on doing when you leave this job?
Well,
basically?
we call those lifers. There's quite a few of the guys that are in the game forever. Herm Schneider with the White Sox has been there for years, and I'm sure that's where he'll retire completely from. We just honored a guy named Gene Monahan, who's been the head athletic trainer with the New York Yankees for 30-plus years. And to survive George Steinbrenner for 30 years is
It's quite the accomplishment.
Yeah. But some of these guys are lifers, and they can't get it out of their system. Again, there's life after baseball, and I've got a young family, and I want to try to spend as much time as I can with them. It's one of those years where I'm looking at probably another 5, maybe 10 years in baseball, and then I'd love to go back. I went to school at the University of Arkansas. I'd love to go back. They have a curriculum program there now for athletic training, and I'd love to go back and teach. And not to say that that would slow down, but I think it would be a much less. I get out of the travel, and just living in a suitcase. It seems like there's always a suitcase right next to my bed, and that's not. It can be appealing, seeing some wonderful cities and spend as much time as we can across the country. But it's also a demand, and it's also a deterrent it's one of the reasons. The travel is one of the reasons that I'll get out, because I'm starting to get tired of it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It's been quite the pleasure having you, Mr. Neal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, that's about all the time we have for today. This is the A-List. I'm Luke Jebb, and have a great night.